Hello and welcome to World News on the Papyrus Global TV. I am Christiana Babayo. Burkina Faso's former leader Damiba, extradited from Togo, faces charges. Malawi healthcare system collapses under USAID funding cuts. Mozambique floods spiral into rapidly worsening emergency, UN warns. Humanitarian aid reaches Port Sudan despite ongoing war. Morocco PM meets US congressional delegation to discuss investment and reform. South Sudan President sacks Interior Minister. Uganda election sparks alarm as Museveni's son claims 22 opposition members killed, threatens Bobi Wine. And now the news in full. Togo has extradited Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, the former transitional leader of Burkina Faso, back to Ouagadougou to face prosecution on a raft of serious charges including embezzlement of public funds, corruption, incitement to commit crimes and money laundering, authorities have confirmed. The extradition took place on 17 January 2026 following a formal request from Burkina Faso's judicial authorities and approval by the Lomé Court of Appeal after a review of legal procedures. Damiba, who first seized power in 2022 by overthrowing President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, was itself toppled 9 months later by fellow soldier Ibrahim Traoré amid internal military power struggles. He had been living in exile in Togo since his removal, but was arrested on 16 January 2026 in execution of a Burkina Faso warrant and subsequently handed over to his home country under extradition protocols. The Togolese government says the extradition was carried out in accordance with its laws and international agreements, with guarantees from Burkina Faso that Damiba's physical integrity would be respected. He would receive a fair trial and would not face the death penalty. Malawi's healthcare system has been plunged into crisis after sweeping cuts to funding from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, leaving vital services for HIV, malaria, and other conditions severely disrupted and reversing years of public health gains. According to health providers and civil society organizations, the withdrawal of US aid over the past year has undone progress in disease prevention and treatment and forced the suspension of key programs. The Family Planning Association of Malawi, FPAM, long a cornerstone of rural health outreach, has been forced to halve its mobile clinics that provided contraception and primary health services to remote communities, leaving many without access to basic health care. Local residents reported a spike in unplanned pregnancies and reduced access to HIV treatment following the withdrawal of support, compounding challenges for vulnerable populations already struggling with limited resources. More than 1 million Malawians living with HIV had previously depended on US-funded programs for life-saving antiretroviral therapy, but the cuts have left gaps in care that many now struggle to bridge. Community health advocates warn that the rollback of funding has prompted layoffs, scaled back services, and deteriorating health outcomes across much of the country, a situation described by some patients as akin to a death sentence. Mozambique is confronting a rapidly escalating flood emergency after weeks of unusually heavy rains have inundated large parts of the country, leaving thousands displaced, infrastructure damaged, and tens of thousands in urgent need of assistance. The United Nations has warned that the situation could worsen as the country enters its annual cyclone season, compounding the risk of communities already struggling with widespread destruction. The floods, triggered by continuous rainfall since mid-December, have affected more than 500,000 people across multiple provinces, with Gaza and Maputo among the hardest hit. Homes, roads, schools, and health facilities have been submerged or washed away, while key transportation routes linking capital Maputo to other regions have been rendered impassable, disrupting supply chains and access to basic services. A national red alert warning, the highest meteorological alert, has been issued as river levels continue to rise. UN agencies including UNICEF has highlighted the growing humanitarian threats to vulnerable populations, particularly children. Contaminated water, disease outbreaks, and rising malnutrition are emerging as deadly secondary dangers as communities face prolonged displacement and limited access to clean water, healthcare, and food supplies. A significant delivery of humanitarian aid has reached Port Sudan, underscoring efforts to assist civilians caught in Sudan's protracted conflict that began in April 2023 between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces. The arrival of thousands of tons of supplies reflects a rare logistical achievement amid a security environment that has severely constrained relief operations. The shipment, reportedly comprising 2,428 tons of food and shelter materials, was delivered through a Turkish-Qatari initiative and is expected to provide much-needed sustenance and support to displaced populations across war-affected areas. Port Sudan has remained a strategic entry for aid, even as fighting continues in other parts of the country. Since the conflict erupted, millions of Sudanese have been displaced from their homes, with many forced to flee to surrounding towns, rural areas, and neighboring countries. Humanitarian agencies stress that while the recent arrival of aid is a critical lifeline, sustained deliveries will be essential to address the expanding needs of population affected by war, including food insecurity, shelter shortages, and shrinking access to basic services. With the conflict showing no immediate signs of abating, international coordination remains central to reaching civilians in hard to access areas. We will now go on a short break, and when we come back, the news will continue. Stay tuned.
The Papyrus Global, we don't just cover events, we create cinematic experiences. From red carpets to birthdays, gala dinners, and your fairy tale weddings, we bring your moments to life with high-tech precision. Our gadgets are smarter, our lenses sharper, and our teams simply world-class. Trust the Papyrus Global to tell your story in the boldest, brightest way possible.
Welcome back, and now the news will continue. Moroccan Prime Minister Aziz Akanoch engaged in high-level discussions with a delegation from the United States Congress on January 20, 2026, focusing on Morocco's ongoing reform agenda, strategic cooperation with the United States, and economic opportunities in the region. The talks explored how Morocco can serve as a hub for U.S. investment and deepen bilateral collaboration in areas that support regional stability and growth. Akanoch outlined the Moroccan government's recent reforms and emphasized the United States' support for the autonomy initiative concerning the southern provinces within the framework of Moroccan sovereignty. Both sides also discussed strengthening ties that could spur mutual economic and diplomatic benefits. The meeting also touched on broader cooperation under a US-led initiative that seeks to involve multiple countries in efforts to support peace and reconstruction, originally conceived for Gaza but expected to extend influence across wider diplomatic arenas. South Sudanese President Salva Kiir has dismissed Interior Minister Angelina Teny, a senior opposition figure and the wife of detained First Vice President Riek Machar, in a move that critics say further weakens the 2018 peace agreement that ended the country's five-year civil war. The dismissal was announced on 20th January 2026 without an official explanation from the presidency. Teny, who also served as minister since 2023 cabinet reshuffle and whose husband has been detained on treason charges related to violence in Upper Nile State, was replaced by Aliu Ayeni Aliu, a veteran loyalist who previously held the same portfolio. The switch reflects shifting power dynamics within the unity government amid rising tensions and clashes in parts of the country. Opposition leaders condemned the move, saying it undermines the already fragile power-sharing arrangement that was central to the 2018 peace deal, which designated the Interior Ministry to the opposition as part of broader governance commitments. Forces loyal to Machar, along with allied White Army fighters, recently made territorial gains in Jonglei State, heightening fears of renewed instability. Political tensions in Uganda have sharply escalated in the aftermath of the 15 January 2026 presidential election, with General Mahuzi Kainerugaba, the country's military chief and son of re-elected President Yoweri Museveni, issuing a series of highly inflammatory statements that have drawn widespread concern. Kaineru Gaba claimed on social media that 22 members of the opposition National Unity Platform (NUP) had been killed since last week, and in remarks reported from his X account appeared to celebrate the toll while threatening further violence. Kaineru Gaba also directed strong rhetoric towards opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi Sentamu, known as Bobi Wine, who finished second in the election and has publicly rejected the official results as illegitimate. In his messages, Kainerugaba gave Wine an ultimatum to surrender to authorities within 48 hours and warned that if he did not, he would be treated as an outlaw or rebel. The postings, some of which have since been deleted by the author, referenced the deaths of NUP members and reportedly included derogatory language towards Wine and his supporters. Wine, a popular former musician turned politician, has accused security forces of intimidation, saying soldiers raided his home and placed restrictions on his movement. In statements posted from undisclosed locations since leaving his residence, he demanded that military personnel vacate his compound and condemned what he described as efforts to silence dissent. And that's all we have on World News on the Papyrus Global TV. I am Christiana Babayo. Thanks for joining us.